for Humanity vs. Insanity, for Fracking Nightmare, and for the last few AVs. So Kyle is the talent behind the AV graphics, and he would love to be here, but unfortunately his wife has a bit of a health issue at the moment, so obviously he's in the right place, he's with her. So I'm sending, by the video, I'm sending my thanks to Kyle. So my last speaker for tonight, well, last speaker really for the conference, and I think this is Max's third AV, yeah, six, 7, and 8. And I first met Max, I think 6 years ago, when I was doing a short tour in Australia, and I did a presentation on the Gold Coast. And Max was sitting at the back of the room there, and then we went and had some lunch together. And we pretty much stayed in contact through those last, what's it now, 6 years. And we did an event together in Glastonbury, I think, 18 months ago or so. I've lost track of time. Amsterdam, yeah. Max is on the road. I mean, he does his radio shows on a regular basis, but he's on the road. I mean, in the last few weeks, he's been in Hawaii, Mexico, Hawaii, where Calgary. Yeah, LA. Want to name drop a few more?
No, that's about it in the last month.
But he has said that he's going to take a break. He's going to continue for a few more months doing various talks around the world, but then he's going to take a little bit of a hiatus, and it might be a couple of years before we see him. So on that basis, I mean, we'll see what happens. A year's a long time. But, you know, Max, you know that you're welcome at AV anytime. I hope I'm saying the same thing in 90 minutes. But, my friend, it's an absolute pleasure to invite you back to AV. And, you know, there's no question that you are making an enormous contribution in getting the word out to an increasingly wide community. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Max Igan.
Thank you very much, Ian. Thank you, brother. Good evening, folks. Well, what do I say after an introduction like that? Thank you so much for putting this event on. What an event, eh? Ian puts on a really, really good event. I've got to say that at all the speaking events I go to, I love speaking at AV8, at the AV events more than any. The calibre of the speakers is always incredible. The problem with me speaking at these events is that the calibre of the speakers is so good and they cover such a wide range of information that every time I get here I have to sort of change my talk after the other speakers because they've just sort of enlightened me with so much stuff. So it's just an ongoing thing with these events. So, and thank you folks, you know, really I want to honour you people. Thank you for the gift of your time this weekend to come and get all this information because, you know, it's important. It's important that people get this and it's important that people share it. So this is the name of today's talk, Which Path to Freedom? Looking Behind the Veil. And I like to include this in every presentation, reality check ahead, and just a bit of a warning there as well. Sometimes I say things that other people may not agree with. So this is a picture that I include in every talk that I do. This is by a friend of mine called Adam Scott Miller, and it's called Wisdom's Dare. And that's what I think life is. I think life is wisdom's dare. It's daring us to be wise. And there's so many people that are looking at the system now. I mean, we've got some real issues, and there's a lot of people that are looking at it, and there's a lot of people that are presenting all different ideas, different ways out of the system, lots of different concepts, different systems, if you will, they're offering to us. You know, there's the Ubuntu system, there's the you know, Venus project, whatever you want to think of, alternate communities people are setting up, all sorts of ways out of it. So which way should we choose? Really, what we need is the path with a heart. And we need to establish what that path is. The path we've got at the moment doesn't really have much of a heart. This is pretty well sums up Western society, I think, and it doesn't have much of a heart. And it's really important that we address this situation. Of course, this is written in a particular way as well. Even when you look at it, you notice it's white people that are destroying all the other countries, but really it's not. It's not white people that are doing it. It's Western society that's doing it. That, of course, is simulated by white people, but it isn't really white people that are doing it. It's Western society. And it's what controls Western society. And it starts here. Really, this is where it starts. You know, children are so important and so precious. They really are. And you can mess up a child's life. You know, if you think of, you know, as a child's growing, the foundations that are being laid for its life, you can mess these up with one simple word, one wrong action. You know, I was a child when I was 5 years old, 4 or 5 years old, I don't know how old I was, 4 or 5 years old, I idolised my family, my sisters and the people. They were like demigods to me. And we had an incident, a really simple incident. Someone had been stealing cream from the refrigerator. My mother used to make up these big bowls of whipped cream. We had them for dessert every night. Someone had been coming up and stealing the cream every night. And I got up one night, running to the toilet, you know, 4 or 5 years old, and I caught this guest staying at our house stealing the cream, this young girl that had been living there as my kind of stepsister, stealing the cream from the fridge. And I just looked and went, oh, it's you that's been stealing the cream. Ran off to the toilet, didn't think anything about it, went to bed. Got up in the morning, and this girl, as I was running to the toilet again in the morning, she said, I caught Max stealing the cream from the fridge last night. And my mother grabbed me, and she pulled a belt down from the rack, and she whipped me with this belt. And this girl was standing behind us, smiling, looking at it, really enjoying the pain that I was in. This was the first time I ever experienced pain. It was the first time I ever got a hiding from my... The first time I ever experienced a lie. It was the first time I ever experienced someone getting enjoyment from the lie. And it changed the entire foundation of my life. I held on to that incident with the whipped cream for 25 years. I thought, people don't care about you. I couldn't understand why my parents would even worry about talking to the people at the shop when they went to buy bread. You know, why are you bothering talking to those people, Mum? They don't care about you. Nobody cares about anybody. Nobody cares about anybody. That's the way I thought life was. Because I woke up as well when I was 4 years old to the fact that something was terribly wrong. When I discovered my parents had to buy land, I was profoundly disturbed by the fact that we couldn't go and live in the forest because we had to buy the land to live there. And I couldn't understand why we had to buy the land. You've probably heard the story. Anybody who's heard me talk about that story when I was 4 years old and I woke up and I'm walking around in the yard with my teddy bear going, Teddy, it's all fucked up. I've been born onto the wrong world. And it really disturbed me. I tell that as a funny story to people, but it was profoundly disturbing to me when I was 4 years old, that I'd been born into the wrong world. I used to talk to my teddy bear asking him to please talk to God and ask him why I'd been put on this earth, because it was the wrong place. I wasn't supposed to be here. These people were all mad. And then when this incident happened with the cream, I just kind of shut down. And I shut down for 25 years and just didn't want to look at the world, didn't want to look at the world realistically, because I really, really believed that nobody cared about anybody. And that's the problem. That's what you can do with one wrong action towards a child at the wrong time in their life. You know, it's so important that we nurture the children and create a good future for these children and create a loving environment for these children to grow up in. And everything about this society prevents that. Everything about this society prevents that. Of course, as soon as they're born, the government wants to heal them for us, make them a lot better. And then when we get them away from all this and get them home, usually we let the television look after them. We don't really look after our kids ourselves very much. And a brief little history of our social system that I like to include in all the talks. You know, they leave the adolescence or the childhood of this. We put them into the education system. The education trains them to be drones. They go out, they get caught in the credit trap. They spend their younger years like that. And then once they've got all these bills, they sit back and pretend to enjoy it. And it's the sum total of our lives in this society. And we drag this debt around with us for our entire life. That's what we get. That's our world. We try to figure it out. We try to look at what's going on. We get televisions and we look at them. We try to figure it out from them. They don't really tell us what's going on. There's all sorts of mechanisms that are in place to brainwash us and to keep us confused and to keep us divided amongst ourselves. That's the sum total of this whole society, and that's what we get at the end of it. Now, I've got a friend that came home here after spending a couple of years down in Peru at an ayahuasca retreat. She's come back to her home in Manchester. She's shocked at the 10 cities that are now in Manchester. You've got 10 cities here in England. I'm sure you people know. You're noticing them yourselves. But what's going on with this? 10 cities in England. You know, because we've forgotten what our place in society is. That's how these 10 cities have even come about. Because we've forgotten, you know, we've got all of our education from the television, most people generally as a society. You know, they sit in front of the screen, they just get fed rubbish by this thing, and meanwhile the whole thing marches ahead. The whole system continues to march ahead. Wars continue, and this whole degradation of our world continues. The whole thing just marches ahead. So you get situations where people wake up to it. People become aware anyway. And a lot of people ask me, are you seeing an awakening? How's the awakening going? Are you seeing a lot of people waking up? I'm seeing a lot of people becoming aware of things like this. I'm not seeing people waking up, though. If there was a mass awakening, we'd have people walking away from the system in droves, but we're not having that. We're seeing people become aware of what's going on, and they're aware that they're being controlled, but they're not really awake yet. They're not really awake to what the control is. But this control is everywhere, folks. They see this, they realise that these octopuses just control our world. There's one in the EU, controlling the EU. You guys are part of it here. There's certainly one in America. And it's in all aspects of American society, even the education system, and that's going everywhere. That's coming around here as well with this whole Common Core, everything that they're doing. What's it called, Common Core here in England? What's it called? Common purpose, yes. Common something in every country. It's common purpose, common core, whatever, it's the same thing. But these octopuses are everywhere. Everywhere. So people are aware there's a problem, so what do we do about it? We see this situation, but we fall for the same old theatre. What do we do when we see these problems? We have an election. Who thought Hillary Clinton was going to win the last election? I did. I totally thought Hillary Clinton was picked. I thought they'd totally groomed this woman for the job. She was going to win. Theatre for the masses, really theatre for the masses. But what happened? Trump won. And how did Trump win? What gave legitimacy to Trump's election, really? Like, if you look at it from the perspective of the independent media, there's no way we would have thought that the swing would have happened. I mean, it's all theatre anyway. The numbers are rigged. I really believe Trump was planned to get in now. I think it was a play all along. But what gave legitimacy to it? It was Pizzagate. You know, Pizzagate released all these Clinton emails and all of this stuff. People suddenly saw what they were electing. They suddenly saw we can't have this thing in the White House. Well, that's the way it appeared to the independent media anyway. You know, there'd been this huge swing, and suddenly we have a truther in there. Of course, Hillary Clinton's election campaign didn't help very much either. It really never does. And people really saw what they were getting in the White House, which is really, how could you have that in the White House? So they went the other way and they voted for Trump. But really, what did they get? You know, sometimes things are just not what they seem, and what they got was just the same old octopus. Only this one's got a Twitter account. That's pretty cool. And now, what have we seen since the Trump election in the United States? You know, we've just seen this whole media storm, people stuck in this whole left-right paradigm again, and it's just theatre for the masses. It's all theatre for the masses, you know. Trump had to win. Trump was supposed to win, and it's like Kissinger says, it's not what is true, it's what's perceived to be true. We had to get him in there and do all this stuff. And what's he done since he got there? You know, so much of the independent media has got behind him as well. And what's he done since he got there? He's just created, you know, it's just a big smoke screen. It's all smoke and mirrors, folks. The whole thing's smoke and mirrors. And the whole thing was one big play, one big Hegelian dialectic. And nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. The world is still going right down the same path that it was. All these things. And the independent media, how many people have got behind them in the independent media? It's absolutely shocking to see. Half of the independent media has forgotten the simple fact that government is not your friend. You know, government is not your friend. They never will. You ask the government for help, they'll give you help, but it's not the help you want. It never is. Government is not your friend. It never is. But nothing has been addressed. Trump hasn't addressed anything. He hasn't addressed the whole war on terror, what that's really all about. He hasn't addressed 9/11. If you want to stop the war on terror, you'd address 9/11. All of the pedophile stuff that we know about now, and we know how deep it goes. And we saw what happened here with this guy and how deep it goes to the royal family. What have we seen since Trump got elected? All we've seen is more rhetoric and posturing. Russia, all of this stuff that's going on, Iran. You knew he was full of it when he started posturing against Iran. Who's seen that paper by the Brookings Institute, Which Path to Persia? And you know, remember that whole rhetoric that Trump went through recently with Iran, saying, oh, look, they've done this missile test and this deal that Obama gave them was too good, we need to revoke it, blah, blah, blah. It's all verbatim in this document, Which Path to Persia, by the Brookings Institute. When they say this is what we're going to do, we have to present them with a deal that is just so good that when they do something just outside the letter, we can say, oh, look, they must have nuclear intentions and continue to vilify Iran, try to push this war, keep pushing this war. It's the same agenda. As soon as he did that, like within days of being elected, you knew he was a player straight away. So why was so much of the independent media supporting this guy? And what else is he? He's just all out supporting Israel. You know, and how are we bringing freedom to the world? How is Trump's government bringing freedom to the world? Well, we've seen the way the West brings freedom to the world. You know, that's the way the West brings freedom to the world. What we've done to all of these countries, this is terrorism, and this is all being waged by our government. So this is just a quick, brief history of the world, folks. You know, the world up to this point anyway. But of course he must support Israel because of what Israel does, of course. Israel needs American support, and yet Israel is the only country who's ever really openly attacked the United States. If you really want to look at it, I mean, you can look at Pearl Harbor, but that was all contrived anyway. And if you really want to sum up America's support for Israel, that's really America's support for Israel. But like I said, of course, they need America's support because it's such a hard done-by country and it's got to stand up against Gaza Strip. And it's not an apartheid state at all, of course. It's not an apartheid state that's going to work if you live in Palestine. But of course, you have to treat the Palestinians like that because if you're born in Gaza, you're a terrorist. But it's just a joke, folks, and this is what Trump is supporting. This is what all of our governments are supporting. This is what your government is supporting as well. They've got to bring Israel into this, folks. I really do, because I'm a strong supporter of the Palestinian issue. And actually, last year when I did this conference, the conference was on Al-Nakba, which was the day of freedom, the day of the great catastrophe that happened in Palestine, the day when freedom was lost for the Palestinian people. But we're all told the Palestinian people are terrorists and they all are trained to hate Israel, and that's why we must support Israel. And when you look at Israeli children, this is the way the Israeli children are trained to think, you know. But what's happening is that all governments are supporting this, and they're actually passing laws to support it. I was just in Canada, and this is what came in while I was in Canada. They're doing all this now. And why are they doing it? They're doing it because there may be some issues with some of this information that we may not talk about here, but I'll just put that slide up there. That's by David Dees. But what's going on there, folks, is atrocious. The whole thing has been built on blood, and this is who is running the whole war on terror. So none of this is being addressed. And people are waking up to it. They're waking up to the fact that what's going on in the Middle East with the war on terror is a war for greater Israel. So what does Trump do? He postures against Syria and goes bombing a foreign country. And when everyone starts crying out war crime about it, because how was the last time when Obama was going to go and bomb them, there was that gas attack, and we didn't even have time to investigate this one. Trump suddenly goes in and bombs them. We don't even have time to investigate whether it's a false flag or not, although, I mean, we know it is. But we didn't even give it time. There wasn't even any time for international outrage and international outcry to stop him. He just went and did it. And everyone started screaming out war crime. What do we get? We get the threat of a nuclear war. That's always a good card to play. Who actually thinks we're going to have a nuclear war with North Korea, folks? Does anyone think that's a threat? I was just in the United States. Everybody in the United States thinks that they're about to go to war with North Korea. I was in LA. The shopkeepers are freaking out. Oh my God, we're a target. Hollywood's here. They want to bomb us. It's unbelievable. They really think Kim Jong-un is going to attack the United States. It's a joke. He's not going to attack the United States. And while everyone's freaking out about it, Trump goes and puts troops on the ground in Syria. You know, tanks rolling into Syria, all of this sort of stuff. And all of this stuff's going on. We try to wake the world up. We try to talk to the world about it, but they're just too busy doing other things. The kids are just too busy doing other things. And that's the problem. This is the problem, the cell phones. Of course, they do get away from the cell phones now and then, and they go out to play now and then. They don't get out very fast. Sometimes they even go out and take their pets for a walk. It's a good thing as well. But what's going to happen, folks, is one day they're going to look up from these cell phones and they're going to realise that the world is not the way it used to be, and it's not the way they thought it was. Because this is all part of this big surveillance system that is coming online, and it's coming online very, very fast. And all we're getting from these people is posturing against this and all of this theatre from these guys. All the wars are just continued all the time. And we need to really step back and look at it, because so much of it has been a play. And even with what I do, when I've looked at all of this stuff, so many of the issues that I've looked at, even talking about Greater Israel, all of these things, why does this continue? Why does the Palestinian issue continue? I mean, we know the wars are meant to be continuous, like George Orwell said. War is not meant to be won, it's meant to be continuous. But why? What's the point? It's not just about the money, it's not just about depopulation. What's it really about? You know, why are the wars continuous all the time? What is all of this stuff about? And why, no matter what we do, doesn't it stop? You know, where is the path with the heart? Why can't we find it? That's the question. So we look deeper into some of these wars and we look what's going on. We find that a lot of it is about organ harvesting, organ trafficking. 15,000 kids have had their organs harvested in Syria. Why do they do all this in Middle Eastern countries? Why are the wars in Middle Eastern countries all the time? Good source of organs. They don't drink. They don't drink alcohol. They don't smoke cigarettes. Good source of clean organs, folks. Really good, healthy people in the Middle East. Most of them are vegetarian. We don't give them enough food to be anything else. But a lot of this goes on, folks. This is a Syrian kid found in a dumpster in Turkey, harvested by Israelis probably. Goes on in Malaysia and goes on everywhere. I'm sure a lot of this was covered in the Pizzagate talk. I missed that talk, unfortunately, I was asleep. Did they tell you what a human body was worth in that talk? Why this actually goes on? You know, when you go into a war zone, I'll get that picture off the screen. When you go into a war zone, and you think about it, you go into a war zone, you're going to kill all these people. Why kill them if they're a resource? Why kill all the people, especially if they're Arabs? Hey, they're terrorists anyway. They're going to grow up to be terrorists, so it doesn't matter what we do to them. They're all just black-jacketed anyway, because that's what we do. We black-jacket a whole race, a whole species, whatever. We're doing it to the North Koreans now. What are we going to do to that country? You know, what we've done to all these Muslim countries, we just black-jacket them, say, oh, Muslims are doing this and Muslims are doing that. You see a gang of Arab rapists in Europe, they're Muslim rapists. Well, by that logic, if you see a gang of white rapists, they should be Christian rapists, shouldn't they? Isn't that the logic that we're using here? Why is it if you've got dark skin, suddenly you're a Muslim? If you come from the Middle East, you're a Muslim. If you're out raping women, I'd say you don't belong to any religion. I'd say you don't practice your faith at all. You're just an arsehole. You know, there's no reason to categorise these as Muslims. You know, it's not about that. But we black jacket the whole race by that. Doesn't matter what we do to them, they're just Muslims. But you go into a place, like if you're going to go into any country, any village, you're going to go in there and just, what are you going to just kill all these people? Each human body is worth a lot of money, a lot of money. You look at this, your kidneys, depending on the country that you're in, 15,000, 62,000, 262,000 in the United States for your kidneys. I could take any one of you out of the room. I could get all of this money out. I can get $115,000 for your heart. I can get $400 for your forearm. I can get $2,000 for your cornea. I can get $23,000 a gram for your bone marrow 2 weeks after you're dead. How's that? And if I add the whole lot up together and sell it on the market at top price, I can get $43 million for every person in the room here. Why am I going to just kill you people and burn you? Well, I can harvest all your organs and sell them to rich people in Beverly Hills. That's what they're doing, folks. They're funneling a lot of these people out through Haiti. This has all been exposed by the Clinton emails. You can look at the research of George Webb. He's done some great research, but George also leads you astray because George is a Zionist, and he makes sure he points direction right away from Israel all the time. And the whole surveillance system that is going ahead as well, Israel is heavily involved in that as well. But this is a lot of what is going on in the war zones. This is a lot of why these wars never stop, because they're a great source of human organs. And so really when you look at the Trump presidency, he's just full of shit, and he's dragging the whole world down with him, the way all of his predecessors have done. But you look at all of this stuff, folks, and you've got to ask, like I said, why is it going on? Why are we lost continuously battling against these wars, against the fracking, against all this stuff? What's the fracking really for? It's not for harvesting gas. It's destroying groundwater. Why are they destroying groundwater? Depopulation, control. But why would they do that? You think, why would they do that? These people need water. But how many people are going to be here? How many people are going to need water? That's the question. How many people are going to be left on the earth? And what's going on in the background while all this is going on? Well, it's like Graham said yesterday, and 10 points to Graham's talk, Graham Downing's talk, Dr. Graham Downing. It actually confirms a lot of the stuff that I've been researching as well, because what's going on in the background is transhumanism. And transhumanism is a real, real problem. It really is. All of these people out there selling it as something great, Elon Musk, all this sort of, this is rubbish. It's not good at all. Like Graham said, the AI control that is coming and the way these machines can think for themselves and talk amongst each other in a language that we cannot understand. This is not a sane thing to be giving the reins of society to. And how it's happening, how it's encroaching into our society is through the guise of convenience and linking all of these things up together. You know, it's smart this and smart that. It's a lot better to have all your computer and your phone and your game and all this stuff and your TV, everything all linked together because it's all really convenient for you. It's all there, convenient, just there in your hand. And eventually it'll become the glasses, Google Glass. But that's how they've done it, by just creating all this convenience, all these conveniences in our lives, and computers that can talk to you, which means computers that are listening to you all the time. Has anyone seen the movie Snowden? Anyone watched that movie? It was a very, very good movie. I didn't particularly like the way it glorified Edward Snowden at the end of it, but the way it showed how the surveillance system works was actually quite profound. They can put in 2 or 3 words, 2 or 3 keywords. They can say, you. Let's look at you. We need to get some dirt on you. So we'll look at your sisters and their relations and their cousins and their this. And oh, look, who's this guy down here? Here's this guy. He's a drug dealer and he's related to this and this and this by connection to you. We'll just switch on his computer. 3 keywords, switch on his computer, switch on his microphone, switch on his camera, switch on his camera and his microphone on his telephone. Doesn't even matter if the computer is switched off or if the phone is switched off. All in is 3 keywords. And they can do it in real time, anybody that's connected. They can do that through Facebook accounts and all this sort of stuff. Just track everybody who's connected to who, access all the accounts, 3 keywords, bang, the camera and the microphone is on. And that's why all the new phones that you're buying now, you notice you can't take the battery out of the new phones that you're buying now? Because that used to be a way around it, take the battery out of your phone. If you want to have a private conversation in your house, the only way to do it is to put your phone in the refrigerator or in the microwave. That's the only way to have a private conversation in your house. And when you have 3 of the phones in your house, they can actually triangulate your house and all sorts of stuff. So this is where they're going with this surveillance technology and these computers that talk to you all the time. And I'm seeing so many truthers, so many people in the truth community that think it's quite cool that their phone talks to them. Hey Siri, what's up? You know? And Siri talks back to them, makes jokes with them and all sorts of stuff. Cortana. I've got a lady in Australia who bought a new Mac operating system, new Mac computer. She purposely didn't switch Siri on because she doesn't want it listening to her. And she was there talking with her husband, planning an overseas trip to South America. And while they're planning it, just in the room, little text popped up on the screen from Siri saying, I can help you with that if you activate me. Is listening to them anyway. Just wasn't talking to them because she hadn't activated it. And she went, oh my God, my privacy is gone. You know, so that's what these things are doing. They're listening to you all the time. And we are allowing all of this stuff into our lives under the guise of convenience. You know, it's just convenient. You know, if you've got a smartphone, don't use it for anything but making phone calls, folks. And I recommend not even having a smartphone. Get an old push-button phone. You know, if you're speaking out against this system and you're using all their tech, that is the system. That's the control grid itself. And as it gets more and more smaller and more compact, that's how it gets you. You know, don't ever shop with credit cards. You know, how many people here actually shop with cash? How many people actually pull money? You all shop with cash? Excellent, excellent. Do not shop with credit cards. You notice if you shop with credit cards, all your Facebook ads are what you bought, all related to what you bought. All this stuff's related. It's all related. They're phasing all of this out in aircraft now as well. A lot of airlines in America, you can't use cash on airlines. You can't even pay for your luggage with cash at the counter. In Hawaii, when I was in Hawaii, to pay for my luggage, no, it was in Philadelphia, to pay for my luggage, they wouldn't let me. I'm saying, here I am at the counter. I'm not in the air yet. Can I give you cash? And they go, no, you've got to go to the machine and you've got to buy a card and put cash on the card and come back and pay me with the card. You know, I'm like, what? You know, why is the machine the middleman? You know, and I had to do it. There was no other way. Otherwise, they wouldn't take my luggage on the plane. Someone else had bought the ticket. What am I going to do? Dishonour the ticket? So, you know, but I said, I'm not going to be flying with your airline again. You know, and on the planes you can't do it. They're taking all of the entertainment systems off the plane as well. So you've got to have your phone with you if you want entertainment on a 10-hour flight. So they're making sure that we're getting immersed into this system. That's the play. They want everybody immersed into it. Why? Because then they can control you. And why would you think they wouldn't? You know, why would you think they wouldn't? You know, you're an electromagnetic being. Everything's electromagnetic. And they can activate all sorts of stuff in your body electromagnetically. That's what a lot of this smart grid is about. It's what they want, why they want everyone to have mobile phones. It's why they want you immersed in this system. It's what a lot of these mobile phone towers are about as well. And these mobile phone towers, about 1 in 5 that you see does not transmit a mobile signal. It actually harvests data from your phone as you drive past. About 1 in 5 of these towers, that's what they do. They're data miners. You know, sometimes you'll see 2 towers close together. You think, what do they do 2 mobile towers right next to each other for? One of them's transmitting signal, one of them's harvesting data. That's the way they do it. So this whole grid's coming ahead, folks. It's going ahead in leaps and bounds. It really is. And if you think that it's a good thing, you're crazy. You really are. And there's nothing wrong with technology. What's wrong with technology is who controls the technology. And when we look at who controls the technology, there's one fact that we really need to take in mind. And that is the fact that government are the main source of death in this world. They really are. Government were the leading cause of death in the 20th century. 261 million people killed by their own governments in the 20th century. Now, this is in the so-called civilized world, you know. And where this is going is really, really frightening. You know, what Graham was saying yesterday about the 14 years and the nanotech and the way these, the vaccines, the vaccines are creating this mesh in your brain, which will become active and become active with the internet and all this sort of stuff. This is quite scary where it's going, and that is where it's going. How many people here saw my talk last year? A few people? Last year I spoke about the fact that they were creating synthetic sperm from stem cells. And I said, this is looking pretty scary. At this stage, all we're really going to need women for is to harvest eggs from. We could have a chamber, vestal virgins, whatever. And they'd grow up thinking it was a great life, you know. And they would grow up in these ectogenesis chambers that they're creating, right? Ectogenesis chambers to raise these eggs in that are inseminated with artificial sperm, so you can tailor your children. So when you can do this, you can inject this nanotech in conception into the egg while it's first forming. Imagine what you can create. And when you think about it from terms of farming people, it's a pretty good idea to do it this way. So that's what I said they were doing last year. I said this is about all we're going to need women for is to harvest eggs. Well, breakthrough in the last 6 months. From stem cells, they've managed to create artificial eggs. Or they're working on it anyway. Very, very close to creating artificial eggs. So then we don't need mothers either. So now we can create completely blank humans. So that's what I believe they're planning on doing. Of course, they're doing this to help us. Of course, they're doing it to help us because so many people are having trouble having children these days. It's just, people are just not strong enough these days. Couldn't be anything that they're doing to them. Of course, it's not anything that we're feeding these people. Couldn't possibly be this society that is contributing to any of it. Not at all. But that's what they're doing, folks, and they're using, as it says down there, using genetically engineered stem cells is how they're doing this. So when you couple this with what Graham was talking about last night, you get to a situation where they can start creating blank humans. So then what are they going to do with us? Well, what they've been doing is they've been, as he said, vaccinating everybody. And by vaccinating people, you isolate certain viruses and you weaponize them, as Graham said last night. So when they're ready for this, they can just create a pandemic and get rid of as many people as they want. And it'll be the ones who've been vaccinated who drop more than anybody else. But it's spread in other ways, not just vaccination, through chemtrails, all sorts of things. I mean, the chemtrails are a multi-platform delivery system, you know, and everybody's kept distracted from really looking at what's going on around them through all of this stuff is the problem. We're just not looking at it. And it's really being promoted to the world, this whole transhumanist agenda. It's been really promoted so that people will accept it. Like the new National Geographic. Anyone see this one? That was at the airport while I was travelling, the new National Geographic. You know, the new human. And look at the top climate facts. Naturally, they've got the facts. Don't go to the fake news, folks. These guys have got the facts. But transhumanism, and notice how it's all one eye on everybody? That's interesting, isn't it? It's all one eye, except for the chimp at the back. You notice? He's looking around the side going, what the fuck are you people doing, you know? Like, yeah, he's the only one who's really got it together. This guy down here, he's going, oh my fucking God, where do we go? And look where we've headed. You know, yeah, I'm bright, I'm brave, and I can't feel a freaking thing. Look at me, I'm dead, I'm void. I have this white eye. That'll be the new disease. It won't be pink eye, it'll be white eye, folks. That's what we're getting. But they're really, really pushing it. Beyond human. This is some of the articles inside the magazine. Beyond human. You know, technology versus natural selection. Great stuff. Do-it-yourself evolution. Okay, science fiction becomes reality. And great articles as well. Look at this one. When I met cyborg Neil Harrison in Barcelona, he looked like any local hipster except for the black antenna arching impressively from the back of his skull over his mop of blonde hair. Impressively. Impressive, folks. So, gee, I might get one of those, get a black antenna arching. It wasn't like, oh my fucking God, this guy's got an antenna. It's impressive that this guy's got an antenna. It's pretty freaky, folks. And as I mentioned in my film Transformation, this is all being prepared through vaccines. This is how it's all happening, through vaccines. When I put out that film, Transformation, in 2012, and I started pointing towards vaccines as one of the sources of the transhumanist virus, if that's what you want to call it, people told me I was going right out on a limb by doing that. But of course, now we're seeing mainstream doctors talking about it as well. One in particular, who do you think that doctor is? Who's talking about that? And I've got to hand it to him for doing so. But what they're doing, folks, is they're creating blank humans. They're creating a situation where we've got blank human beings and they can be anything they want. And they can inject this nanotech into them at any stage, and they can put this mesh, have them online as they're born. You know, what's this going to do to the future? What's this going to do to the human experience? You know, and with looking at everything that is coming online, as Graham said, we've got about 14 years now to turn this around. And very interestingly, I was talking to someone last night in a random conversation, someone I won't name, who works in construction. And he's saying that a lot of the stuff that they build, I think it was bridges or buildings or whatever it is that they build, infrastructure sort of stuff, normally they build stuff with a 104-year lifespan. But now the new stuff they're building with an 11-year lifespan. So this is all steamrolling ahead, folks. This society isn't supposed to be kicking around for very much longer. Okay? And all this stuff we've been looking at, a lot of it has been a distraction. All this, even fighting for Palestine and Israel, a lot of stuff that I've been caught up in, it's been a distraction. That's why they keep it going, to keep us fighting about it, to keep us thinking we can change the world by changing that. You know, Palestine, I still believe, holds the key to change the world if we were to address it from a legal perspective, if we get people online to do that. But really, a lot of it is distraction. A lot of it is distraction, so we're not looking at what's going on. That's a lot of what the internet has done. It's created another octopus, just like Trump. You know, but it's done that because it's given us all these rabbit holes to go down and all these things to point the finger at and all these issues to fight. We've got so many issues to go and fight. You know, the fracking, the homelessness, the this, the that, the wars, the terrorism, you know, the police state, you know, the water rights, the parking, everything they're doing. In Canada, you've got to pay to park outside your own house. You've got to pay outside your park outside your own house, and you can only park there for 2 hours. You've got to pay more. This is my fucking house. What is this, you know? But they just do it. They just let them do it. They just let them do it. They're bringing new cannabis laws online and stuff in Canada as well. They're controlling all of that. Bringing cannabis laws in Australia as well, GM cannabis. So, you know, but Trump's a player, and Trump's always been a player, and Trump was supposed to be elected. The whole thing was a play. The whole theatre between him and Hillary Clinton and him being an underdog and him being a truther, it was all a play. And how you can tell it was a play, again, is because of Pizzagate. Pizzagate. When Pizzagate came out, I told everybody, look, don't focus on the pizza store. You know, this is a global pedophile ring that's happening here, and the focus on the pizza store is going to create a situation where the independent media gets basically vilified. And, you know, it's going to be seen as an attack against the small business, and the independent media is going to be blamed on it. And, you know, I think it was the next day after I put out that show, gunmen went in, threatened them, blah, 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 fake news. The whole meme came out the next day. But Donald Trump mentioned the term Pizzagate in October 2016. This is like a full 2-3 months before that revelation happened with the Clinton emails, all the Podesta shit, before any of that happened, before the term Pizzagate was apparently coined, Donald Trump mentioned it in a television interview. Someone said something to him about, because the Anthony Weiner emails had been released, but it was before the Podesta emails. And he's saying, oh yeah, it's terrible what's going on in Washington. I'll be going back and forth between Anthony Weinergate and Pizzagate, and it just got lost in the conversation. And all these people started putting out YouTube videos. Oh my God, is Donald Trump a time traveller? Because he went back and he knew this, you know. No, he's not a time traveller. It was a slip of the tongue. It means it was a play. It was already in the wind. They planned for all this email stuff to be released so that it would give legitimacy to his presidency, and all of this stuff would happen so we could create the whole fake news meme and vilify the independent media so we could keep going in the same direction. That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about, and that's what it's always been about. The whole thing was a play. It really was, you know. And we're facing so much shit, folks. We really are. We're facing so much shit from so many angles, you know. It's us against the machine, you know. And there's so many ways they're getting at us. And something that I always like to touch on, one of the ways they've got at us the most is through outlawing this stuff. I think this also really, really ties into the whole depopulation agenda, the whole control that we're looking at, the whole pandemic, the oncoming pandemic that they want to introduce, because this is a really healing plan. I've healed so many cancers with this plan. I've healed skin cancer on myself. I've healed stomach cancer. I've healed pancreatic cancer, testicular cancer, throat cancer, so many cancers. I've cured lymphoma. I've cured Lyme's disease. I've seen an autistic child showing an 80% increase in motor skills by using this plan. You know, this is a healing substance, and outlawing this plan has really, really weakened our immune system and has caused so many problems in the human species. And we have to start addressing these sorts of issues, because That's what lies beneath the veil, folks, is the fact that the world's run by criminals. The world's run by criminals, and we're just pandering to criminals. We're not doing anything about it. Everything we try to do, we look for these ways out, these people to come along with an idea, come along with the Ubuntu project or the Venus project or, an alternate community or this or that. We don't need to build an alternate community. We need to fix the one that we've got. We need to fix this one, because if you go and build an alternate community, you're forgetting what created the need for you to do that. It's because this community is dragging the whole world off the cliff. And you're still part of the world. If you go over and create an alternate community and don't, if you cut yourself off from this community and don't use it to ripple out in this community, then you're just part of the problem. They want you to do that because you're not paying attention when you do that. And that's what we haven't been doing this whole time. That's what the internet's done to us as well. We're off down these rabbit holes all the time. We're not paying attention to our environment and paying attention to our surroundings. And when all of these laws and all these new things come in, we just pander to them. We just say, oh, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. And we go down the rabbit hole again and try to look for someone to point the finger at. Now, you can point the finger at anybody you want, folks. You really can. But pretty soon we're not going to be able to do it because there's so many changes coming to the internet because of this whole fake news meme. And even in this country, Theresa May's got great new ideas for the internet that you should all be happy with, I'm sure. Regulated by government. And really we've got that now with Facebook, haven't we? I mean, we've all moved over to Facebook. Everybody gets all their contacts through Facebook. We used to go to forums. We used to surf the net. We used to go to different sites and enter chat rooms and all sorts of stuff. Most people don't do that anymore. They just go to Facebook. And all Facebook is a big forum that's moderated by government. That's all it is. And everybody that puts everything about their life on Facebook is just a CIA database. That's all it is. I mean, it's great for staying connected to people, but we used to do that anyway. We did that before Facebook. How did this just suddenly infiltrate into our lives and become our lives? And for many of the young kids coming up, the internet is Facebook, and Facebook is the internet. And that's a pretty scary thing. Who sees that TV show, Black Mirror? Anyone watch that? I saw an episode of it the other night. I've never watched it before, but I saw an episode where these people had these little things in their eyes, and you could look at people and you could rate them. Oh, you're a 4.6, you're a 4.2, and you give them a little swipe on the way past and give them a point after you interact with them. And the whole society is so incredibly freaking fake. And that's where we're going. That's really where we're going. It really surprised me when I saw that show. I thought, whoever wrote this has got some insight. Because that's the society that we're going, this whole Facebook-driven society, and that's the society that our kids have got. And it's up to us to deal with this, because we've got a cacostocracy, folks, that's running the world. We really do. And everybody is so programmed, and really, it's wisdom's there what we do with this. It's wisdom's there how to get out of it. So we have to figure out how to get out of it ourselves. That's why I created Full Circle Project. I created Full Circle Project and purposely stepped away from it because I want people to know that you've got to lead yourselves. You've got to find an issue in your community and find people in your community that you can work with, like-minded people, and get involved. And if it's not through Full Circle Project, then by whatever means, but find a way of uniting with your community. Back in 2008, I put out a film called The Big Picture. And in that film, I said, World War III has already started. And World War III is a war that is being waged by the elite against the people. And that's what's really happening, folks. And until we are prepared to admit that, we're never going to get anywhere. So we've got to find whatever means we can to unite our communities and unite people around you, break down the barriers with people, all these social barriers, all this bullshit. Whatever it is that you can do, unite with the people around you, but don't lose focus of what's created the problem. Because the problem is government and our respect for authority and all of this rubbish and all the stuff that they put us through. It really is. We've got to start questioning authority because, the human race is under attack. There's a war going on. We have about 10 years left to turn this around, 10 to 14 years to turn this around, folks. I've been out here sort of politely asking people to wake the fuck up for a long time now, I really have, been very polite and very eloquent about it, but it's getting to the point where people have got to stand up for themselves and start questioning authority and realise that every politician out there puts their legs on one pan at a time, their pants on one leg at a time. Sorry, bit tired, jet-lagged. But they're just people, we see these people and they're like demigods to us because we see them in these cars, we see them on TV and they all look special and they all look glittery and glitzy. We see them in a motorcade. But we see them in the supermarket. They're just like anybody else. They're just wizened old beans like Theresa May. I mean, oh, God. What is that? That's another unelected Prime Minister. We're good at that in the British, aren't we? And we've got a British government in Australia pretty well, you know. We have unelected Prime Ministers all the time. I think they've got one in Canada too, don't they? Unelected Prime Ministers, folks, we're really good at it. Just vote anybody in that they want. And, but we're never going to get out of this. You know, everything we try to do, we pander through the system. We try to create a new idea and then we work within the rules of the system to try to get it through, to get it passed, to create a new consciousness in anybody. And a lot of this stuff is just distraction. You know, we'll create a little alternate society over here and we're all great and we're all happy. Meanwhile, the world's falling apart over here. It doesn't matter what great ideas you have. They're still spraying you with chemtrails. They're still spraying nanotech everywhere. There's still nanotech in the food. They're still poisoning the water. Nestle's still buying up all the water. They're still fracking all the water. You can create your alternate community all you want. You won't have any water to drink because you didn't address the root core of the problem. You know, the root core of the problem is this system, folks, and our respect for authority, and we've got to break out of that mentality. We're only going to get free when we do that, when we're prepared to stand up for ourselves and just break the chains, just break them. Don't stand by any of this. You know, the whole Occupy movement as well, that was a decent attempt. All these people got together and said, hey, there's a problem, and we don't know what the fuck to do about it. That's basically what it was. You know, they didn't really need to go and occupy Wall Street. They needed to occupy themselves. We already occupy the whole planet, but we don't occupy ourselves. You know, we don't occupy the space that we have and say, well, basically, who the fuck are you people that are telling me to do any of this stuff anyway? You know, you're just our employees. You know, but you stand up and do that, what happens? You get banged on the head because you don't have the respect of your community around you. You don't live in a united community. And that's what all this is about. That's what all this transhumanist stuff is about. That's what all the social system's about, the economic system. It's all about separation, keeping us separated from each other. You know, but hopefully people have learned enough here at the weekend and enough of these talks to realise that we can't stay separated from each other. We've got to join forces and realise that humanity is under attack. And whatever means you can find to wake people up, you should do. You know, and I'm not one to recommend violence. I don't condone violence, but I certainly have no problem with counter-violence. You know, if anybody comes for you or threatens you with violence, you should stand up against them, and the community should stand up with you. And people who are working in government jobs, you need to quit your jobs. You need to quit your jobs, folks. I'm sorry, but you need to quit your jobs. If you're working in these industries, you need to quit your jobs. And if you're going out or married to someone who's working in a government industry or is an order follower, you need to tell them to quit their job or get another spouse. You know, you do. It's a stand we have to make because that's what's holding the system up. You know, something I've been trying to promote and I've started is a day of non-compliance on the 15th of every month. You know, I'd like to start off with one day. I mean, I'd like to just do non-compliance and everybody stop, but maybe people will warm to one day of non-compliance. You know, and it doesn't mean stay home from your job if you think you're going to lose your job. I don't want to ruin your life, but just don't spend any money. Don't buy anything. Turn your television off, turn your computer off, turn all that sort of stuff off. Just shut out, disconnect from the system for one day. If you can stay home from work, do it. And encourage everybody to do it. Imagine if the whole world didn't spend money for a day, 24 hours. Imagine what would happen. Imagine all the people sitting in Wall Street looking at the screens going, oh my, the numbers aren't changing. They'd have meltdowns. It'd be great. It'd be so good to see. But you send a shockwave around the world. Just one day. Why aren't anybody using their credit cards? Why isn't anybody using the banks, you know? Well, it's going to happen. It's going to happen on a Sunday occasionally. But, you know, you could make it on a whatever. But, you know, the 15th, even on a Sunday, if people didn't spend any money on a Sunday, it wouldn't matter. It'd be the same thing, the same effect. You know, if people didn't spend money for a day, it'd make a huge difference. It'd send a shockwave right around the world. You know, and hopefully that would encourage people to want to do it a bit more and to get involved. We can make it a thing, you know, non-compliance day once a month and get it rolling, get something rolling, anything rolling to get people involved. You know, because we're not going to address it legally. Who thinks there's a legal way out of the system? Who thinks law's real? Does anybody here think law's real? If you think law's real, then Palestine's the way out. Palestine's the only way out if you think law's real. And I think that's one of the reasons it's there. It's like a carrot that's being dangled in front of our face. And I'm hugely outspoken towards the Palestinian issue, I really am, because, you know, this is a very, very serious problem, and the child abuse that is Palestine is absolutely shocking. Now, for those people who don't know, like this area here, Gaza Strip, this is an area 4.5 miles wide, 25 miles long, 1.8 million people, the average age of 17. It's child abuse. It's simple child abuse. But not only that, it's a war crime. It's a breach of Article 33 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, which is a war crime. It's collective punishment. So therefore, if you think law's real, if you don't like law that's being brought in, if you don't like Theresa May bringing in her internet censorship laws and all the stuff she wants to do, you could question her. You could say, well, hang on, is supporting war crimes against the law under British law? And I'm sure they'll say, yes, it is. Well, you're supporting war crimes, Theresa May, by your support of the State of Israel, which is in breach of Article 33 of the Fourth Geneva Convention. So how is the legislation that you're enacting valid when you are a provable war criminal under your own law? That's a kind of a loophole, isn't it? Can you explain that for us, please? You know, because these people are all war criminals. So if you think law is real, stand up and call this out. But of course, nobody will because they're scared of Muslims. This whole Muslim menace, they think Gaza Strip is this den of Muslim terrorists. It's always threatening Israel. You know, it's kept there so that Israel can get all the funding that it gets. And it's kept there and in that state that it's in by Hamas, basically. It seems to work for Israel more than anybody. And just ask anybody in Gaza and they'll tell you the same thing. You know, I have conversations with these people all the time. But Gaza Strip and Palestine itself is a war crime that we could use to address the situation of every single politician in the Western world who's supporting this and roll back all their legislation. But the only way we're going to do that is if we grow up here, you know, and embrace the warrior spirit, folks, and start standing up for ourselves, you know, questioning authority in every single opportunity we have to do so. Question authority. Always ask why. If anyone asks you to do anything or tells you to do anything, always ask them why you should be required to do that. Something that's been a massive discovery that by a man called Romney Stewart, I was talking to a couple of people outside about this earlier on, is the Justinian deception, the language fraud that happens in the legal system. Has anyone looked into this? The Justinian deception, Romney Stewart? A few people familiar with it? It's regarding the all capitals name that's on all your documents. And no, this isn't lose the name, win the game. It isn't about capitis dominium maxima or any of that sort of stuff. It's a higher harmonic than any of that. It's the simple fact that an all capitals name does not exist. It's not a valid language. There is no word that exists in English that's written in all capitals. There isn't. And I don't know what channel it would be, but Romney Stewart is an Australian guy, and he spent years actually trying to find out how this worked. And what he did, he sat down and we just started reading Black's Law, and he got up to the D's, you know, 3/4 of the way through the D's, and this is a thick book, you know, trying to find out what is this all capitals language, because where do you look for it? And he found out it's called Dog Latin. It's an illegitimate text. It's a fraudulent text. It's the language of the dead. The only place you find that language is on tombstones. And so he tried it. He had a problem with his license. He went into the courthouse. I've got a question. I'm here to talk for myself and speak for myself, but I've got a question. I want to know why my last name appears first on this document and why it's written in all capitals. What is this all capitals text that you've used? Because it doesn't appear to be any valid form of English. And what was the English styles manual that you used to compose this document? And the judge put an estoppel on the case and threw him out of the court straight away, because the judge can't answer that question, because the language on your license and on your court document that they send you in all capitals with your name before your last name first doesn't exist. It's not a valid language. As soon as you say that's you've said I'm an illiterate fool. I can't even read my own name. And I need someone to speak for me, so I get a lawyer and all this sort of stuff. I'd suggest you try it. If you've got a traffic fine or something like that, just tell them you're going in there, you're happy to pay the fine, going in there to clear this matter up. I just have a query. What is this? Because I can't read it. And I need to know what English manual you use, because there's only one book for the English language, which is the Oxford Manual of English Styles. And you will not find that language in that book. So if this is an English document that was sent to you, asking you to come to court, it needs to be written in English. Ask them to send you one with your name on it, because that's not your name. And that really works, folks. It really does work, and I'm sure it will work here in England as well. So if you've got some little petty fine that you're happy to pay anyway, and let them know, hey, look, I'm not here to create a problem. I'm happy to pay the fine. I just need this little clarification here. See if it works. You're going to find that it does. You know, this whole fraudulent thing, even when you go in there and swear on the Bible, it's written the Holy Bible in capital letters, so therefore it invalidates the whole book. It's not a real language. So it's this whole grammatic fraud. That's how they've got us. That's how this whole legal system works. So if you think the legal system's real, folks, that's what you're dealing with. But, you know, the reason we don't get through any of this is because we don't ever question it. We don't embrace the warrior spirit, and we don't stand up against these people. And we've got to stand up against these people, folks, because you're under attack. And you've got to start calling things for what they are. And start thinking outside the box. You've really got to start thinking outside of the box. Don't you love that picture? Isn't that a great picture? There's no fence there, folks. There's no fence. It's just the gate. Okay? Yeah. Really? Start thinking for yourselves, I think. You know, I mean, that's a fantastic picture. It really sums up our society, folks, and it's because we just don't help each other. We just don't help each other. You know, the animal kingdom, they help each other, okay, you know. We start helping each other, we can create any future we want. We really can. You know, and what are they going to do? What are they going to do if we start helping each other and start thinking for ourselves? You know, they're not going to be able to do anything. Is there a seat up here? There's no stool up here, is there? A lot of people ask me why, you know, why I do this. Why I do this, folks. I'm just going to sit down and talk to you for a while. A lot of people ask me why I do this. You know, like, you're just an angry man. You know, a lot of people call me a rebel without a cause. My parents, my sisters, my siblings always used to tell me I was a rebel without a cause. Like, you go through your life fighting the system and balking and doing all this stuff to you know, just do whatever, you know. And even with doing what I do, you know, as an activist, people are always saying to me, well, you know, if you don't like this system, what's the new system? What's the new model that you want to bring forth? And there is no new model, folks. There can't ever be a new model. And there isn't essentially anything wrong with this system. You know, what's wrong with this system is us. What's wrong with this system is what's in our hearts. And that's what's wrong with the Ubuntu system and the Venus Project and any other thing that anybody wants to bring forth. You know, if we go forward and we expect a leader to come along and lead us into this new model, and we haven't changed what's in our hearts, it's not going to matter. There is no model to follow. And if we change what's in our hearts and we stop tolerating wrong behaviour and stop, you know, doing the wrong thing and tolerating the wrong thing and start doing the right thing in all we do, then the system has to change around us. There's nothing else that has to change. You know, it's a ripple effect. You know, imagine if you start interacting with people and doing the right thing in all that you do, you know, and giving to people unconditionally, you know, without expecting anything back. You know, realising that you're already in a world of abundance. The only thing that keeps you in a state of scarcity is this financial system and your belief in the scarcity anyway. You know, I just went over to Hawaii and did a whole bunch of Kambo workshops over there. If I'd sold that Kambo to people, and I'd sold and what people are charging them and all that sort of stuff, I would have made $7,000 while I was over there. But I gave it all away. I gave it all away for free. And I let them give me what they could give me. Wasn't anywhere near $7,000, you know, but it got me next to where I needed to be. It got me onto the next point where I ended up getting a month's free accommodation and serving 5 more people Kambo and got given gifts and moved to other places and flown around. Everything works, you know, everything just works if you can break out of this economic system and start doing the right thing in all that you do and stop putting any economic value over people. You know, a really scary thing in that talk of Graham's the other day when he was talking about suicide, and he said, you know, the economic viability and the economic viability of people in a transhumanist world. You know, are people economically viable to have as many rights as people that are enhanced and all this sort of stuff? It all becomes about economics because we let it. We let it become about economics because we've forgotten how to give from each other. And that's another reason why I don't ever charge for medicines, because if I charge you, if I give you Kambo and I charge you for it, I've denied you the ability to give me something. I've denied you the ability to give. And even if you can't give, that's fine, I'll give it to you for free anyway. But, you know, how would you deny someone that ability? By putting this economic value over everything. And that's where it goes wrong, you know. And if we change what's in our hearts, then the whole system has to change around us, you know. This whole transhumanist thing can't happen if we don't tolerate wrong behaviour. If we didn't tolerate it, if we questioned it, it wouldn't happen. You know, all these parking laws that come in, all this sort of stuff, they wouldn't happen if people questioned them. It's like when the poll tax happened. All you guys just said, no, we're not paying it. What happened to the poll tax? Of course, they probably snuck it in some other way. But the poll tax went away because nobody complied with it. It's like when they bring in laws saying you can't put out your rubbish bin except for on Thursdays, you should put it out every day. Just everybody should put it out every day, because they can't dictate what you can and cannot do. Because these people are not your rulers. These people are your servants. They're your employees. They get up there and they swear to serve the people, you know. And now, of course, we've got this big wall of stupidity between us and the government, which is the police. You know, they seem to enforce everything the government says, no matter how corrupt it is. And, you know, we get away with that as well. They get away with it because we're constantly fighting against them. You know, if we want to stand up against the system, we have a big protest and a march in the street. Nobody hears about it. Those big protests that were out front of the BBC last year, or the year before, didn't even make the BBC news. Well, 20,000 people out the front of the BBC, and BBC's are going, it's all calm in London, you know. They didn't even make the news. People didn't even know it was happening. It was like 20,000 people out there protesting Palestine or Israel or some sort of thing. So Israel's treatment of Palestine. But nobody hears about it, you know. And that's and when we do that, the police see that, and it's just this big confrontation, us against them. So it trains the police to believe that the people are their enemy. And many of the police think that. They get into these clubs and they become part of this big boys club. You know, and they think, you know, they're trained to believe the people are their enemy. So we go and do these protests and we get out there and we reinforce that belief. Now, of course, there's some protests you need to do. Wells, things like Ian does at the fracking well, stop these mines going in. But marching down the street of London and holding placards, this is counterproductive. It doesn't achieve anything. If you were to stay home and simply switch off everything and disconnect from the system would have nowhere to go. That's what I mean. We don't need to occupy Wall Street. We already occupy the entire earth, but we don't occupy ourselves. You know, if we stop complying with the system has nowhere to go. It has nothing holding it up. The police can go out there and be ready for this big protest, but the protest is simply people stay home and don't spend any money and don't get involved and refuse to go to work or whatever until things change, and start holding these people accountable, you know. Holding them accountable for the war crimes that they commit and the state of the world, because it's these people have done it. You know, and until we admit that we've got a criminal class that is ruling this world, a kakistocracy is what we have, folks. This is a word that I've been bringing back into fashion. Kakistocracy comes from the Baltic kaka, of course, shit, ruled by the shit people. It's an actual word. It was taken out of the dictionary about 100 years ago. They took that one out. You'll still find it in some dictionaries, but a kakistocracy is defined as governance by the worst elements of society who govern entirely in their own interests to the permanent detriment of all other classes. And that's what we've got. It's not elites, it's not the ruling class, it's not even an oligarchy, it's a kakistocracy. It's ruled by the shit people, it's ruled by a criminal class. And until we admit that and face up to the sad fact that we have criminals that are making rules and we're abiding by rules that are given to us by criminals, because we're not holding them accountable, you know. We're not doing this, we're not creating the future that we want. You know, we're not creating the future that we could have because we don't respect ourselves enough to respect the people around us is the problem. You know, and we think we see someone in a uniform abusing somebody and we think it's okay for that to happen because they're wearing a uniform. It's not okay. It's not okay. The only reason they're able to do that anyway is because of this whole Justinian deception, this whole misuse of the name, this whole misuse of the language, this belief of jurisdiction that these people claim to have over you. And I'm not saying try to argue with a police officer on the side of the road. I mean, don't. These people are terminally stupid and they'll hurt you because they can, and they will because they enjoy it. So you get out of their company as quickly as possible. But if you've got to go to court and realise what this system is, it's all based on grammatical deception anyway. And that's all these rules are that we are following. And the rules are there to protect the system and to allow you to be slowly killed, basically. You know, we're under attack, folks. And, you know, they're killing us. They're killing us and they're killing our children, and they're creating a future that is not going to be worth living in if we don't stand up and do something about it. You know, and I've tried on my radio shows, I've tried to be very positive and bring a very, very calm, eloquent message to people and tell them politely to wake the fuck up, like I've said. That's really what it's been about. But I do the shows because I'm angry. I'm really angry. I'm seething at what is being done to this world, what is being done to my brothers and sisters. How many people have to suffer before we start to pay attention? And when we do start to pay attention, we pay attention in all the wrong directions. Like I said, you know, we've been misdirected in so many ways. Actually, one of the talks I did here, either the year before last or last year, I think, was called Conspiracy Misdirection. Because that's exactly what it's been about. You know, like I can prove to you it's anybody you want. If you really want to start pointing the finger at someone, the Jesuits or the Jews or the Freemasons, or you tell me who you want to blame, aliens, whatever. Tell me who you want to blame. Give me 2 or 3 hours, I'll prepare a slideshow for you and I'll mount a convincing case that it's whoever you believe it is. Because all of the information out there is out there for us to do that. You know, and until we admit that, we're not going to get anywhere. It's the same with the gematria and all the Freemason codes and the numbers and all of this stuff. You think about this, you know. People say they want to study this. They want to study the gematria. They want to study the Freemason codes. They want to know how it works. They know that these things set up a magic that controls the world. How does this magic work? And they get into it and they go down the rabbit hole and they spend their whole lives studying this stuff, studying the gematria, studying the numbers and all this sort of stuff to figure out how the magic works. And at the end of their lives, they've got all this information, but they missed out on their life and they didn't fix the system. This stuff had them totally controlled and fixated, and that is how the magic works. Because you're looking for it, and it keeps you looking for it. If you hadn't been taught to read in English and taught to read in all these spells, which is what English is, people say that, you know, a spell is a series of words. No, a word is a series of spells. That's the way it works. You spell English. You don't spell Hebrew. It's sort of symbol languages, you know, the letters. You've got vast different meanings and, you know, pictograms and all this sort of stuff, Aramaic, a lot of ancient languages, Sanskrit. You don't really spell these languages. You spell Western languages and English languages because it creates a spell. It creates a spell in your mind, the written word, the law that they get you. It's all spells. The whole lot is spells. And it's looking for it. If you weren't taught to read and taught to look for all this stuff, you'd never see it. You'd never be looking for it. You know, average people out there in the street, they don't see all the Freemason symbolism. They don't see all the signs. They don't see all the gematria. They don't see all this conspiracy stuff. It's only those who are awake who see it. And they go straight down that rabbit hole and they stay fixated on it and they completely lose focus of their surroundings and what's actually going on in the world around them. That's how the magic works. That's how it controls them. And that's why I don't even bother with it anymore, because what's the point? I mean, it's there. We know it's there. It's always there. But we have to realise our own potential, folks. We've got to realise that it's us that has to change things by applying ourselves to the world. We really do. We do that and we'll be like this. We'll be like a phoenix rising from the ashes. And if we were to stand up against the system, I mean, really, what are they going to do? Seriously. What are they going to do, folks? There's not a lot they can do, because there's really more of us than there is of them. And, you know, we don't really want to hurt them. I don't want to hurt them. I prefer to have them join us, and I'm sure many of them will. A really encouraging thing, actually, during the previously aforementioned Kambo workshops when I was in Hawaii, one of the members of the group was this young, sort of well-built guy, and I'm asking him what they do, and I said to this guy, "What do you do?" He said, "Well, I work for the Department of Homeland Security." I thought, oh, okay, here they are. They're onto me. You know, this guy's here to throw me off the boat halfway through the fishing trip or something. Yes, I've got him here, folks. Release the sharks. I'll throw him overboard. You can just imagine it, you know. But this guy works for a tactical response unit. He's part of the military who's commissioned to work for Homeland Security as a tactical response team. And he said, yeah. I said, well, what are you doing here? He said, well, I'm a big fan of the show. He said, I work with a dozen other guys and we all listen to your radio show and we think it's great. And I'll tell you right now, if martial law is declared in the United States, we're all going home. You know, we're not doing anything. They say, we're just in this nice cushy job and we kind of know what's coming down the pipe. You know, but we all listen to your show and we love it. And if it all turns pear-shaped, we're grabbing all the weapons and going home to look after our family. So, and he said, you'd be surprised at how many people that work on tactical response teams and who work for Department of Homeland Security are completely aware of what's going on and are all prepared to go home and look after their families when martial law, when and if it's declared. So that's a really encouraging sign as well. I mean, a lot of these people are awake, they just can't find a way out as well. And the problem is, you know, the lack of connectivity we have. You know, we've only got things like Facebook and ways of sharing information, and so many people out there feel like they're alone. Which is, again, why I created Full Circle Project, so people would realise that we're not alone. There are millions and millions of people around the world. Everywhere I go, everywhere I travel, I find pockets of resistance like this. Everywhere I go, folks. And even when I have conversations in supermarkets and on airlines and all sorts of stuff, I'm seeing so many more people who are aware of what's happening. And it's like everyone's waiting for someone to just do something to create this landslide. you know. And really, I think we can create it any time if we simply disconnect from the system and stop complying with it. I really do. I think we can do it ourselves. Find these issues in our community and address them from the right way. Address all the legislation at the root cause. Any law that's coming down, ask why you have to comply with it. Because if law's real, then, well, you're a war criminal, so how is this valid? Especially in America. I don't know what it's like here, what sort of support you've got for Israel here. And I don't do this because I hate Israel or I hate Jews or anything like that, folks. Looking at it from a legal perspective, it's a war crime. It's an open war crime, and it gives us a key we can use to address or question every single politician in the Western world using their own law against them, if you believe law is real. And even by doing that, and I don't expect to get anywhere, what court's going to prosecute them anyway? But even by doing that, you're demonstrating and you're alerting the community to the fact that it's all fiction. There is no law. There's no law that controls these people, so how are these people able to control you? Because all they're really doing is making you walk between the lines. Everything we do is walk between the lines and do what you're told. That's what it's all about. That's what it's always been about. And we're allowing the world to be destroyed by this criminal class because we're not questioning what they do. And we continue to compete with each other in our societies. I really like what they were saying before about these cooperative ways of approaching things and these cooperative societies we need to have. And we can do that with this society. We don't need any alternate community to do it. We've just got to start breaking down the barriers in this community and breaking the law in some cases as well. Going and feeding the homeless and just doing what you should do. Doing the right thing in all that you do. And when people question it, again, question the legislation, which is causing you to have to step between their lines and do what you're told. Because we don't want to do any of that sort of stuff. Because the only people that are going to change the world is us, folks. And even coming to these talks and all of these things that we see in this weekend, it's great that people come here and listen to all the speakers, but don't think that by coming here you've made a difference. You've got to take the information home and apply it to the community and network with the people here. How many people here have come here and gone, wow, it's so great to meet all these like-minded people. Anybody you make eye contact with and get some little bit of rapport with, get their contact, get their details, get involved, get an action group, start addressing things in your own area, handing out leaflets like this gentleman was asking over here, was suggesting that you do. All of this sort of stuff makes a difference, folks. And don't think that you can't make a difference. Don't think that you're just a little person that can't make a difference. Something I really like to stress to people is that, I'm a social misfit. I really am. I've been a guitar player, smoking weed, whatever. I've just been bumping through life. I really have. I'm a nobody. I'm an absolute nobody. And I've reached hundreds of thousands of people just by daring to speak out. People say, oh, you've got this great voice, Max. I don't know. People seem to like my voice. That's great. I appreciate that. But I don't think it's the voice. I think it's the message. And all the message is a message that comes from a heart. That's the only reason I've managed to reach people is because I speak from the heart. And you all have a heart. You can all do this. You all have something to say. You can all make a difference. You're not just little people. Everything that we face in the world comes from ideas that people had. All the bad stuff that we're facing, all the good stuff that we're facing, ultimately, all of it was born in the mind of a single individual who had an idea and put it into practice, and it just took off and became reality for everybody else. And somewhere out there in the world, we may not have it ourselves, we may have a piece of it, but somewhere out there, whether we do it through a union of minds or whatever, out there is the idea that will change things. We just have to find it, we just have to apply it. But we have to believe in ourselves and believe in others in order to do that. And we've got to live in this world, and we've got to get through this in order to be anything, I think. I think evil has to exist. I think a lot of this stuff has to exist in order for us to evolve into anything. So it all has purpose. Don't think it has to go the way it's going. And I think we're in this point and in this time for a reason. We really are. We've been given an opportunity and a choice as to which way we want to go. We all see this transhumanist nightmare coming, and we think, wow, what can we do about it? Well, we can get involved. It's the biggest challenge we've ever faced as a species. We're really, looking right down the barrel of our extinction if we don't do this, if we don't stand up to it and admit what is going on here. It's a really hard thing for people to face. And like I said, I've tried to be really positive on the radio shows. I've really tried to empower people and keep it really, You know, leave people at the end of the show feeling really good and really happy and like there's a bright hope of the future, you know, but ultimately it's about these guys. It's about these guys. And sometimes even when I do the show, I wonder whether I'm being too, you know, keeping people complacent by offering them too much hope. Because the only hope we've got is if we get involved. You know, get involved on the community ourselves. And I know it's hard, folks. I know it's really hard. You know, but I'm a firm believer, you know, if you throw yourself to the wind, you can ride it. And I'm living proof that it works. It really does. It's worked for me anyway. I just sort of bump around the world and try to make the change that I can, because I have no stake in the outcome anyway. I have no stake in the outcome of this existence. If the human race destroys itself, it destroys itself. It's not my fault. It's not my problem. I did what I could. And if the experiment fails, the experiment fails. I'm only here for a breath. I don't really care what happens with my life. You know, I don't have any attachment to possessions or anything like that. I know that I came here to die, so what's the threat? You know, dying is what I came here to do and take knowledge with me at the end of it. So where's the threat to these people? How can they hurt me in any way? They might be able to hurt this, but they can't hurt me. And this is just an experience I'm having anyway. So where's the problem? There shouldn't be a problem for anybody through any of this. So, but we've got to get involved, folks. We've got to get involved. That's the solution. The solution is in the hearts of all of you people out there. That's how we make a difference. And if we're not prepared to do that, then no one's going to come along and change anything. And if there isn't any system that's going to come along, it's us that has to do it ourselves. You know, so Full Circle Project, this is something that you really can get involved in. I'm really happy to hear that you did meet some people and got a group involved. And there's other people here that are involved in this Full Circle Project as well. But I purposely stepped away from that because I want people to know that you're your own leader. You know, there can't be any leaders. I mean, and even with an issue in your community, I can't come to your community and address that issue because I don't know what it is. You know, it's going to be different in every single community that you go to. There's little local things. There's something there that the people are pissed off with about with the government, whether it's the garbage collection or the potholes in the road or whatever. Someone said some wonderful stuff about potholes earlier on. I won't share it with you, but there's going to be things in your community that you can deal with and get people on board and start looking at the legislation that created the problem. Because every problem we've got comes from legislation, folks. The fracking that Ian's dealing with comes from legislation that allows it to happen. You go and protest the companies, that's all very well, but unless you deal with the legislation that created the ability for them to do that, you're just putting a Band-Aid on the symptom. You know, these are all symptoms of major problems. And stop looking at all the distractions as well, you know, and look at the root core of all the problems. Even with addressing things like Fukushima and all this radiation and all this sort of stuff, which I heavily question, actually. Does anyone here question what's really going on with Fukushima and what's really going on with the radiation situation in the world here? Anyone notice the fact that there's healthy citizens living in Hiroshima, you know? It's interesting, isn't it? I saw a report recently of a girl who went to Chernobyl and she was sitting there at ground zero with her feet up on the table, eating an apple that she'd picked from the tree outside. Wildlife was in abundance. And she went out and got tested. She had 0 radiation readings after Chernobyl. And I was just in Hawaii and we're told the Pacific Ocean's dying, and I'm seeing an awful lot of dolphins and whales and all sorts of stuff in the Pacific Ocean. I mean, there's a lot of abundant life there. We went swimming with whales, went swimming with dolphins, and there's a lot of life in the Pacific Ocean. So I'm really starting to question how much of this is just fear porn to keep us distracted and keep us looking down all these rabbit holes and addressing all these issues rather than really addressing the here and now that's happening in our own communities around us right now, because that's what we need to be addressing. And like I said, folks, you've got to get rid of these mobile phones. I know it's going to be really hard, but really you should throw your smartphones away. I know it's hard, isn't it? But you should. That's what you should do. And you should stop your kids using these things. Madonna's children aren't allowed to watch TV, you know that? Not allowed to watch TV. Why do you think that is? This is Madonna. Won't let her kids watch TV because she knows the damage it does. Throw your TVs away. Anyone seen the film The Green Beautiful? That film, you know, it's about a world where they basically got all their technology away, and the way they did it was non-compliance, just disconnect from it. And they remember the great period where it was all just this mishmash where they threw all their TVs away and got rid of all their electrical appliances and all this sort of stuff. That's how we do it, folks. We've got to stop buying into our own slavery system, because that is what's there right in front of our faces, right under our noses. We're using it all the time. All these conveniences, these mod cons, the smartphone, the digital grid, the smart meters they're putting on your houses, it's all part of the same thing. And when all this whole transhumanist thing comes online, that's how it'll be controlled, through the digital system, through the smart wireless system. That's why they want everybody in this wireless technology. There were tests they did a couple of years ago on rats, where they injected nanotechnology into rats, and they were able to switch the genes on and off in the rats using radio waves. So this is what they're doing, folks. And like I said in my film Transformation that I made in 2012, the genetic modification of the human race is happening from the inside out. You know, and I was looking at it the way they were doing with nanoarrays and affecting our DNA and all sorts of stuff, but now it's even getting beyond that, where they'll be able to breed these blank humans and you know, manufacture the sperm, manufacture the eggs, you know, create them in an ectogenesis chamber. It's the Matrix. It's right there. I mean, they'll probably feed them the old humans the way they did in the Matrix. They'll have a perfect system, you know, and that's where we're going. It's really, really interesting, folks, when you look at it, but all the technology to do this is now on the drawing board now. And when you look at where we're going and you look at the people who control this, that's the problem. So, you know, it's up to us. It's up to us. It's scary, huh? But it's up to us, folks, and it's for these guys, because they're not going to have a future. And even now, the kids that are coming up now, you know, these kids are just not real bright. Some of them are. Some of them are really bright. But, you know, a lot of them are just, they're good with the tech, but they can't grow a plant, they can't cook a meal, they can't look after themselves, they can't function in a world that isn't digital. You know, and they're all scared of global warming and scared of overpopulation, all these myths that are complete myths. You know, the world isn't overpopulated at all. It's a joke. That's why they pack people into cities, so they think that it's overpopulated, but it isn't. So, you know, we've got to address the situation, folks, and that's the message, really. We've got to address it. You know, there is no one coming along to lead us to safety. And I don't do this because I'm angry with the government. I don't do it because I want to be a revolutionary, or I want to have a revolution, or I want violence. I do it because I care about the future. That's why I've always done it. You know, and we all have to do it. You all have to do it. You have to take this stuff home with you, and you have to start getting involved in your community in any way that you can. I've often said, you know, if you don't know your neighbours yet, bake them a cake, do something. Go to a ball game with them, even if you hate ball games. Just get to know them, become their friend so that you can talk to them, and let them realise that we're facing a clear and present danger, and we're facing it from our own governments. You know, these people have tricked us into thinking that they're our rulers, and they're not. They're our servants. And we have to stand up in mass to do it. So we've got to have these strong, united communities. So anything you can do to build these barriers in your communities is what you need to do. And get out of the cities if you can. Cities are not a good place to be for what is coming, I don't think. And it is going to come if we don't stand up and address it. It's really starting to snowball now, and I really don't find too many ways to stop it if people don't get motivated. That's the problem. People are waiting for the newsletter to come along and tell them that the world has been saved. You know, we'll join this group or that group or this, you know, full circle project or whatever, and we'll hold Max's coat while he goes out and saves the world for us. Not going to happen, you know. You've got to get involved, and you've got to stop putting people up on pedestals. You know, a lot of people go out of their way to come and bring you a lot of really valuable information at these talks and these conferences, and, you know, really all of us are pleading with you to get involved and to not put us on pedestals and to not think we're anybody special. We're just people who have kids like you who want those kids to have a future. And that's really the most important thing. Do they have a future? So get involved, folks. I mean, and I can't offer you any real solutions. All I can say is put our minds together. You know, start thinking and communicating with people and questioning authority. You question everything these politicians want you to do. And when they say they're going to bring in their new internet and stuff, well, I don't know, break the law. Do whatever you can. It's not real law anyway, and if they really take you to court, use that Justinian deception stuff and ask them about the language. Do what you can. Question them on every single thing they ask you to do. You know, if they ask you to take your hat off, ask them why. Anything. They ask you to stand up or sit down, ask them why. Anything they do, ask them why. You know, but support the people around you in doing that as well. And if you know people who work in these industries, folks, support them in finding other jobs, you know, because it's difficult. If people are going to, it's one thing for me to say, if you work in an industry that supports government, you need to quit your job. But it's difficult for people to do that, to just quit their job. If they do and they decide they're going to and find some other more human means of employment, we need to support them in that. As communities, we need to sort of help them out financially and help them out with accommodation and whatever we can to get them out of these industries and back onto the right side of history. Because like I said, you know, we've got a short window, folks. We've got a very, very short window. So, yeah, what do we do about that? Get involved, folks, get involved. And like I keep saying to people, this just seems to make it into every slideshow. But, yeah, get involved, folks, get involved. Are we out of time, Ian? We're out of time. Okay, we're out of time, folks, but... thanks, folks. Thank you for coming and listening. This is going to be the last tour that I do for a while, like Ian said. I really want to go home. I want to make another film called Cacostocracy, which is going to be part 2 of Transformation, which is going to cover all of this. But, you know, like I said, all the stuff that you've learned here today, a lot of people have gone out of their way to come and bring you this information, and it's so important that you share it. Share it with the people around you. Get involved with these flyers. Even make up flyers of some of the stuff that you've learned here to yourself. If you've taken notes, make up your own flyers. Just get the information out to people. Alert people what's going on with this vaccine agenda. That's a really hard one. But realise that no one's coming to save you. There's no movement that's coming to save you. It's up to a groundswell of people, and we can do it through non-compliance. So please, please get involved, and thank you very much for the talk. And you've already clapped, don't worry about it again.
Thanks, Max. Now, I'm sure that many of you are aware that Max is an extremely accomplished guitarist. And it just so happens... just so happens that we have a guitar. And,
you have a guitar?
Yeah.
Is this in a weird tuning? I can play some guitar for you, folks. I don't play much anymore, but I'll give you a little black because it's going to be the last I'll be around for a while. And I don't really know much anymore, so I just got to make it up as I go along. So, but I figure there's always a song in the air. If you play the right notes, something will follow. Thanks, folks. Thank you, brother.
Ladies and gentlemen, Max Igan.